Hello and welcome to Conversations in the Nick of Time. I'm your host, Nikki Roach, and as always, just honored to have you with us. Very exciting times going on right now, and we are excited that you have joined us and joined in on that excitement, right? Exciting. It is just amazing how so much is happening in the world, but so much good is happening, while we're also grieving regarding certain things. We still keep moving and we still keep tapping into our leaders to move us forward and be progressive. For those of you who are new to the platform, Conversations in the Nick of Time focuses on leaders across various industries, allowing them to show up and share out, providing some mentoring moments for each of us, including myself, to get on a different path and making sure that we're moving forward with the right tools. And many of them, they want to come on, they do come on and talk about leadership excellence, accidents, and equity, because it takes all of that to lead us to where we are going. And it's not always just a destination, but it's a journey. So we're excited about this opportunity to share with you. Want to thank our partners and sponsors, KSTL Jubilee 690 AM, Sparkman Publications, TV Network, and ALA Public Relations. So thanks to all of them. As we begin to shift our attention to our topic for today, which is very, very near and dear to my heart, and now understanding the importance of giving back where you're grounded and where you've been rooted as well, and some of us uprooted. But we come back and we pour in so that we can be the difference that we know that space or community needs. Well, our guest today has been the absolute jewel, absolute visionary, absolute consistent in her leadership regarding doing just that, pouring back into the community as well as lifting up others, providing them the tools, not just in word, but also in deed. Just to set our context for today, want to be mindful that you've probably read in a number of different platforms where women of all races are number one when it comes to starting new small businesses. Oftentimes, they are the only person who is an employee and they go at it alone. Well, it's interesting that while between 2007 and 2019, even before the pandemic, women started businesses 5 times the national average. And women-owned businesses generated $1.6 trillion in revenue. And since March of 2020, the world was shut down and women started more businesses than men. And they have continued to exceed and move forward. And that was according to an article by Forbes entitled "More and More Women Are Starting Businesses. Why is it so surprising?" And that was by Liz Eating. But then when we shift to examine what's happening with Black women in specific, being very, very niched down in regards to what's happening. And so there's an article in the Harvard Business Review that says Black women are more likely to start businesses than white men, by Donna Kelly, Mahadi Majabari, and Angela Randolph. And they go on to say in this article that despite starting businesses at a high rate, 3% of women who have small businesses are not, that only the 3% are running mature businesses, meaning businesses that are operable, that are actually employing other people outside of themselves and generating income. In contrast, white women are more than twice as likely to be mature business owner at 7%, despite their lower rates of starting new businesses. The disparity when it comes to the startups is very, very different. There are many things that cause this to be true. One explanation is that it's the type of business that African American and Black women are starting. 61% of Black women entrepreneurs start businesses with either retail, wholesale, health, education, government, or social service sectors, compared to 47% of white women and 32% white men. And so that causes the businesses to be difficult to sustain and actually generate ongoing income. Another possible explanation they mention is access to capital, not being able to tap into the monies that are needed. And Black women are self-funding their total startup capital. I'm one of those. This is in spite of the fact that 29% of Black women entrepreneurs live in households with incomes over $75,000 annually, compared to 52% of white men. And so it goes on to say that Black women are beyond educated. If you look at the data, we are graduating with master's degrees. We are the number one group graduating with master's degrees. So we're not only positioning ourselves with knowledge, but then we are the ones who are also generating the most debt when it comes to going back to school, but also now we have that debt because we've now launched a business. So then, bam, ding to the credit. So we have all these different scenarios going, but there was one young lady who dared to go past all of this data, all these statistics, and she's going to share a little bit about her journey. But the one word that resonated after reading her information, and then also kind of knowing her, so I can get to cyber stalk her just a little bit. The word that came to mind was build, B-U-I-L-D, which is a verb meaning action, right? So build means to construct something by putting parts of material together to make stronger or more intense, to cause to be constructed. This is what I like. To develop according to a systemic plan, be a definite process or a particular base. Last, to increase, to enlarge. Well, it is with pure delight and excitement that I introduce my guest for today, Lady Cortaiga S. Collins. She is building, no questions asked. There are many lessons that I am learning even from the distance regarding her work. She is the most proud of being a wife, mother, and associate pastor. She is a fierce advocate for children and families. She serves as founding executive director of the Foundation for Strengthening Families, FSF. In addition to her work as an executive director of FSF, Mrs. Collins serves as executive director for a Good Shepherd Early Learning Center, a nationally accredited early childhood education center that she founded in 2009. She's also the visionary behind the Show Me Family Zone, an ambitious Herculean effort to end generational poverty and close the wealth gap and achievement gap in the West End of Missouri. Cortaiga holds a bachelor's degree in communications from the University of Missouri, St. Louis, a second bachelor's in childhood development from Central Methodist University, and a master's degree in business administration from Webster University. I want to welcome you, Lady Collins. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much, Nikki. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, it's been maybe not 1991 since I've seen you since 91, right?
Maybe here or there, but it may have been since 91.
Oh my gosh. So we have a little history,
right?
Having gone through school together, middle school, high school. And I am not surprised at all that we are here at this point to celebrate you, first of all, but then also just to learn how in the world did you begin to find yourself in this space of building?
I was kind of thrust into early childhood through personal experiences. And so I was well on my way, so I thought, to becoming a CPA and to eventually be a CFO of some Fortune 500 company. But you know how they say, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Correct.
So it was after the birth of my second son that everything changed, and I began to look for quality care for him while I returned to work. And some of the experiences that I had in my search were appalling. And so I didn't even realize at that time that I was a visionary, but I knew that I wanted to be a part of the solution and not just complain about the problem. And I did not want other moms to experience the horrific experiences that I had in my search, my pursuit for quality. Back then I called it daycare for my son. I needed to be able to go to work and perform and build my career with peace of mind that my children were in a nurturing, safe space, and that wasn't happening. And I did not want other moms to experience that.
Wow. And so just taking a step back to, you have this personal conflict within and your lived experience, but what was the first step you even, like, where do you start?
Yeah, so I had no clue, right, what to do. I just knew that I had the commission to start my own childcare center. And so I just did just a brief internet search. And so from that, I was able to get access to some of the steps that were made available on the governmental website for opening a childcare center. And so I just began to follow those steps. And so from there, I knew that I needed to be educated in child development and early childhood. And so I enrolled, even though I already had my first bachelor's degree, I enrolled in the community college to begin taking some courses in child development. And from there, so when you pursue formal education, you kind of open up your sphere of influence. And so professors begin to share information about me, and I begin to learn about the industry, which led to further research on my part. So from there, I became aware of a grant that was available for first-time entrepreneurs or for anybody who wanted to enter the early childhood space. Okay. So I submitted the application, and that's where it started.
Okay, so you went back, because a lot of times we just have an idea and we run with the idea. We hang a shingle, maybe not literally, but
right.
We start the business, because now it's so quick we can after this time together can go online and start a business together, in 5 minutes, right?
Right.
And so with that, I'm glad you brought up the fact that you took the time, even though you were already educated, degreed up, tooled up, went back to get educated on that. What was going through your mind even at that time? Because oftentimes we don't think that we need to do that.
Right. I just knew that, well, you know what, this is it, Nikki. I believe that if you can't do it well, then don't do it at all. Okay. And I wanted to set a standard. So my vision has always been to raise the standard of childcare. Okay. And I knew that I did not have enough tools in my own tool belt. I did not have the intellect to be able to do that on my own. I didn't even know what quality childcare looked like. And I needed someone with experience to show me and tell me what that looks like. And so, when you become an entrepreneur, pride can be nowhere in, you have to swallow your pride completely. And so that's why I did that, because I wanted to be able to do it and do it well. I wanted the families to have the quality of care that they deserve, and not just babysit children, but actually develop them.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you took the time. So you get educated, but then while you're getting educated in this space, you take the initiative, because I heard you say you leaned on that expertise that the faculty in these classes were sharing, but also I'm sure classmates were influential in some of the strategies that you adopted, but also you mentioned, like, even the grant. Like, a lot of times we can put more on ourselves as entrepreneurs, small business owners, visionaries, thought leaders. then we need to, because it's not that we always have the answers or the know-how, which I'm also hearing from you and this time, but it's going out to find it. So there's a lot of intentionality. Once you made up your mind, this is what I'm after, but here's how I'm going to have to get to that.
Exactly. Because in your intro, you mentioned that access to capital is a huge barrier for entrepreneurs of color, specifically women. And at the time, I knew that I did not have the resources, the financial resources to do this.
And that didn't scare you or tell you, for you to say, maybe it's too big?
Well, you know what? That was 22 years ago. It did not, I don't remember being fearful. Because I just remember going after it. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I don't have the money. I knew I couldn't do it without the money. So I'm like, let me find where the money is. And it was just a simple Google search, grants for early childhood. I mean, sometimes we make things more difficult than they need to be. And sometimes fear is paralyzing. And I didn't have time to be paralyzed. I had to keep moving. So it was just a simple Google search. And it was, I had never written a grant before. So that was a bit intimidating.
Wait a minute, you did it yourself?
I did it myself. I had no money. So I had no money to pay a grant writer. So I pulled on, so my background in my undergraduate degree is in communications, and I also finished the coursework for a certificate in writing. So I just pulled from that knowledge to answer those questions, coupled with what I had learned at the community college about early childhood. And I coupled those things, merged together to create a grant. And I was so proud that when they were doing the interview portion of it, they told me that my application was one of the best grant applications that they had seen in a long time. So I was very excited about that. I had never done it before. I had no experience in early childhood. I had never responded to an RFP before, request for proposals. So to hear that was very encouraging for me.
And I love the fact that you said, let me just tap into what I do know.
Right.
Because we will disregard that from time to time. But let me tap into what I do know and bring that to this situation and end up getting complimented on something you did. So there is power in sometimes not knowing the right way to do certain things.
Exactly. Because there's nothing for you to have to undo. You don't have to, retrain yourself because you're learning new. So you have to be open-minded as an entrepreneur, specifically when you're entering a field, an industry that's new to you. You have to keep an open mind. And so that's kind of where I was.
Right. Now, you also mentioned, still in that same example that you provided, going back to school and being in that classroom, the importance of relationship has been how critical for you?
Oh my gosh, it has been paramount to my success. And in the beginning, I was, especially as an entrepreneur, I was one of those, if I don't do it, it won't be done right. And I did not lean on my village. And so that caused a lot of stress. It caused a lot of just stress. So partnerships, teams, building teams has been paramount to my success. So yeah, it's been a huge integral part of me being able to achieve what I've been able to achieve. I could not do it without collaborations, without teamwork. And then so I'm always also very open and transparent with anybody who wants to maybe duplicate some of my efforts, because sadly, when I was entering the field, trying to get mentorship, it was not available to me. Lots of closed doors, lots of no's, and no one was willing to share information. None of the people that I contacted. Now, mind you, this was 20 years ago, 22 years ago, but nobody was willing to be open and transparent about entrepreneurship, about the industry. And it seemed very competitive and quiet. No one wanted to share information.
Right,
So
because
I want to know you.
you are in a very what we would call or tag a saturated market, no matter where you go. But you've named some differentiators in regards to what it is that you offer, and we can read upon that. But how is it that you've navigated this saturated? Because we can also say, well, everybody's already doing it. Maybe I don't, we don't need one more, or what's going to make me so different? How did you approach that?
That's a great question. So, one thing that I did was I tried to develop a business plan, and one of the questions when you're on a template, 22 years ago, when you needed to do a business plan, was the market and the competition, and you have to be able to set yourself apart. And so I had to figure out what was it about me that made me different. And oddly enough, Nikki, what drew people to me was my personal story. People could relate to what had happened to me.
Okay.
And then when I focused on quality,
Okay.
those are the things that made it different for me. And then customer service. So not even though I serve a low income population, but I still always treat them with honor and dignity and respect. From my staff down to my families that I serve, I've always treated them as partners because it's because of them that I am. Without them, there's no me. So I always provide the utmost level of customer service.
Okay. I love it, and it comes back down to this whole idea of being authentic. We have used that word so much to where it is really it's lost its power in a sense, because we've used it so much. But at the end of the day, that's what it takes, right?
It is. It is. And I needed to be authentic because of my foundational passion, which is to help women. And I think what drew women to me is because I could say, I was you. Yeah. So if you can see, feel, and touch someone who has achieved a certain level of success and overcome the same barriers and obstacles that you are facing, then it inspires you. It makes you feel like you can do it, because I was a single mom. I had already had two children by the time I got married. And I had children by different men. And I know that that's not popular. And a lot of people use that as a way to demean women, to destroy their esteem, to make them feel like that this is all that you are and that you would never be able to accomplish. And then, we went to high school together. So I had a child while we were seniors in high school. So I was a teen mom. I was a single mom, made lots of mistakes. So I can relate. So empathy has been huge for me in dealing with the families that I deal with, because I've been poor. I've been a single mom. I've been a teenage mom. I understand why you make the choices that you make related to your children. But because I've been there and did something different, I can show you a different path that can lead to greater successes. And so neither you nor your child will be a statistic.
And it's so, like, I have goosebumps because it is so big of you. So big of you to take what was meant to disqualify you.
Yes.
To not only qualify you, but you're actually laying, and that's why I chose the word build. And remember, we broke it down, but to develop according to a systemic plan. This is what the work that you're doing, and why I'm so in awe of the gift that God has given you and trusted you with, is that you've taken, again, what we were like, oh my God, and what's crazy is if you don't remove yourself from those environments that feed that energy, that feed that mindset, that behavior that comes along with that, and that mindset of scarcity and lack, that can be unlearned. with the exposure, but also there's a system, a plan that has to happen or that has to be put in place. And so you coming back from moving on with life, God opens doors and allows you to do these other things. But then it's like, wait a minute, let me go back, let me plant, but let me also have a plan, because this is not just about me. And individuals, like, we know when something's coming from the heart, right? I know they say kids really know, but we know too. And, we'll hold back, we can be reserved, but you're right. Like, being able to hear your story and the fact that, you're not just in here coming to, collect some money. You're not just coming in here, because I'm trying to understand how people get into these service spaces or launching these companies that deal with providing a service. That means you're working with people. How can you not want to work with the people and not have a heart for the people that you say you've been called to serve? That is just strange to me, but I hear the opposite, which is very refreshing.
Thank you. Yes, because entering the field of early childhood for me was never a money grab. I never got into it for the money. Now, I would be lying if I said I didn't want to make money, but it was never about the money for me.
Different things.
Right. So, I always wanted to serve women. I always wanted to reach back and get those women who were, for lack of a better word, thrown away, like I was, who were told that they would never be more because of a mistake that they made. And so I wanted to be able to serve my community. I specifically sought out a community like the one that I'm in now, to provide the educational opportunities for them, because I know that access to education is what allowed me to get to the space that I am now. And it's almost like the situation with Solomon, when God asked him, "What do you want?" He asked for wisdom. And he said, because you asked for wisdom, didn't ask for your enemy, didn't ask for money, I'm going to give you the wisdom, and I'm going to give you. So even though I didn't enter it for money, the lifestyle that this passion, this purpose has provided for me has blown my mind. I never imagined that I would be in the space that I'm in, all because I answered a call.
Yeah. And answering that call, you're reaping benefits, but that whole community where the buildings and people get to ride past these buildings where it was just nothingness, which yields to hopelessness. But now you come in, plant some life all the way around, right? In regards to a building, but then you've got people, little feet, big feet, all those feet running through the building. Jobs, like you're employing people, you're showing them. And I know it comes, with its barriers and its challenges, but the fact that there's a ripple effect to something that, again, started because of an experience, and you leaned into that experience.
Yes, for sure. And it's all intentional, because I don't want to just change my life. I want to bring people along with me. Yeah. I want to, in a perfect world, I would eradicate poverty.
Yeah.
And I just want to bring as many people along with me, because one of the missions of the nonprofit is to improve your quality of life.
Yeah.
And that can look different for so many people, but I want to help to improve the mortality rates in the African American community, but in low income communities, specifically those that are populated with Black and brown people. We're not living as long. And some of it is related to lifestyle choices, which backs to education, because we don't know. So I want to make this information available to my community so that we can live longer, so that we can build stronger families, so that we can, have generational wealth, not just finances, but generational wealth that includes health.
You heard her yourself, not even knowledgeable of all of the ins and outs of the industries, but knew that there was a need. So in 2009, as a result of her experience, Cortaiga began her search, did the due diligence to learn about the industry, took her idea and her concept and embedded the vision that she had for herself, and came about Good Shepherd. Good Shepherd has, under her leadership, after 2009 to current date, expanded in so many ways: enrollment, staffing, physical locations, and community impact, just to name a few. Under her leadership, visible results. The Good Shepherd is a nationally accredited, long-standing early childhood education childcare center, providing support and resources to those in the West End, Wells, Goodfellow, and Hamilton Heights neighborhoods. That's in the St. Louis City location, but she is already working on areas outside of that core, that hub, her start, her new beginning. Now she is even outside of the St. Louis region. More information to come on that. But Good Shepherd is currently enrolling infants, toddlers, preschoolers for the new state-of-the-art facility. Good Shepherd Warrington, the new location, is now also accepting enrollment and is also hiring for part-time and full-time positions. Good Shepherd prides itself on creating experiences that prepare children to successfully face the world, while also empowering families to build stronger communities and better futures. To learn more about the various opportunities at all the locations, please visit Good Shepherd at goodshepherd.earlylearning.com. That's goodshepherd.earlylearning.com. Thank you. I want to thank each of you for tuning in. If you are just joining us, you're listening to Conversations in the Nick of Time. I am your host, Nikki Roach, and I am just delighted to have our guest today, Lady Cortaiga Collins. And she is the founder of Foundation for Strengthening Families, FSF, as also executive director for Good Shepherd Early Learning Center, a nationally accredited child education center. And she is allowing us to tap into her expertise when it comes to building. Building is the signature word that we've pulled out after reading all of the amazing things that she has been doing. Now I just want to shift our attention just a little bit, still, in this same space, but when it comes to the accidents, meaning the uh-ohs, the oops, didn't mean to do that, of the business, and in regards to building, what was the one thing that you were like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna get through this?
Well, there were so many. So let me pick one. You make as a first, well, not first generation, but as a new entrepreneur, you make mistakes when you pivot and begin to navigate spaces that are unfamiliar. And when you don't have the mentorship and the leadership that you need, you make a lot of mistakes. So I would say for somebody who's maybe who's an aspiring entrepreneur, I would say protect your credit and save money. Those were some of the biggest mistakes that I made in the beginning, is that I did not have really good credit when I got started, which limited my access to capital, because it's already difficult for women of color to obtain capital as it is. But then when you already have those, when you legitimize their no, it's easier for them. So we're gonna say no, not because you're an African American, not because you're a woman, but because your credit score is 525. Okay. So I would say if you're an entrepreneur, aspiring or already established, make sure that you preserve your good credit. You know, a good name will take you far. So that's one thing. And then going back to what we said in the beginning, is my mantra has always been respect your craft enough to be educated.
Okay.
So learn as much as you can. Now, whether that's formal education or informal, but with the wealth of information that's available on the internet, it's important for you to recognize to honor your craft and become educated so that you know and can anticipate some of the ebbs and flows, some of the peaks and valleys. Point to make a point, when I went back to community college, I learned that that the schools were going to start taking 3-year-olds. When I was going to school, they weren't doing that. But then when I was in school, that was on the horizon. So at that point, I began to pivot my business model and say, I need to make sure that I have plenty of space available for infants.
Okay.
So you have to learn your industry and keep your, hand to the pulse of the industry so that you can anticipate and become aware of how your industry is going to change over time.
Now, you talked about keeping up with your industry. What is it that you're doing to do that yourself? Not just so much with the business, but just because also just as leadership, because as a leader with teams, you've got 2 different organizations that are operating. You have life of your own, but then you have family. Associate pastor, that's a whole role.
Right.
So how is it that you're also just as a leader of these different spaces? How is it that you're remaining relevant?
That's a great question. So professional development.
Okay.
I'm big on professional development and trying to be in spaces where so I do a lot. I'm starting to do, when the pandemic happened, I started to be involved in advocacy work for early childhood.
And that was new. That was a new move for you.
Right, it was. Okay. I never knew that I would be, doing that. So, but it goes along with my passion of bringing people along with me, right? So it's not just what's happening for me as an early childhood provider, but the industry. What are my, colleagues, my sisters, my brothers who are doing the same business? Are they experiencing the same successes that I am? If not, why not? And how can I help them? So that's kind of when I begin to get into the advocacy space. And so with that, just reading, they say leaders are readers.
Yeah.
Reading, attending events related to the industry, getting to know people, collaborations like you talked about with networking and getting to know people, partnerships. All of those things are important. You cannot operate inside a vacuum. You have to get out and network. I'm always any place where I believe that there are going to be people of influence that can help me to remain relevant and know what's happening in my industry. And not only that, their influence to help me to get there. So you cannot be shy, introverted. There's no space for that when you want to grow, above where you are.
Yeah, no, some people might say, like, yeah, I hear you that I need to read. What would you say is your hack in regards to the actual process of reading? Because I know for me, I'm always reading. I'm always having to do some research, which I love. Sometimes I can get lost in it. But I have found ways to keep the momentum going without getting so lost in the reading, and then also not having the time as I would like to. What are some things that you do or that you've adopted to make time?
That's interesting. So everything is always about a mental shift. It starts here, right? In the mind, when you know that you have to do it. But a couple of things that will become very important in your life as an entrepreneur is sacrifice. And I always talk about opportunity cost, giving up the benefit of one thing in order to get the benefit of another.
Opportunity costs.
Yes, paying those opportunity costs. And so you have to carve out some time in your day to read. But even if it's just read one article, but if you're not a big reader, then here's the hack. Join some other alliances.
Yeah.
Get around people who do have the time and opportunity to do more reading and collaborate with them. So if you are if your field is early childhood education, become a part of other leaders in your industry. Establish relationships with people who are leaders in your industry. And if you can, find a mentor, somebody who's willing to pour into you so that you can reap some of the benefit of their knowledge and learn from their mistakes.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but partnerships, alliances, that will help if you don't have time to do a lot of reading.
Yeah, I know for me, one thing, because and as a kid, I'm a busybody. Like I want to do. I was a doer. But as I get older, I love reading. And it's just amazing how much, as you said, there's so much information, there's so much insight. And it may not be something that directly lifts off a page and you apply it, but it will spark something in you to where like, oh, very interesting way. And it's no different than being exposed to, if just like when I was with a sister friend in DC not too long ago, and she's like, I'm going to pick you up and, let's go grab some lunch and we're going to do a couple of things. And I said, sure. And we got in and it's cold. And so she's like, one thing that I have been introduced to is heated seats in my car. She was like, press the button over there. I was like, well, I don't need it. She was like, no, press the button, press it. You want to enjoy these heated seats. But I was so tickled because we're up in age and like we're fascinated by some of the smallest things.
Right.
But it was so interesting because I said, we always say, I don't need that. I don't want that until you're exposed to it. Then you can't go back. You can't undo that when you're in it. So it brings me to what you're saying about the reading and the positioning yourself to be around others, because once you're exposed to it, you want those heated seats, and you're like, oh, that does feel good. So it's like you have to expose, because we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
As well as we don't know how sitting here talking to Lady Collins for a few moments will say, you know what, let me go back and revisit this. Let me just slow down, catch my breath, and Google. What are other people doing? What's the trends that's happening? As you say, maybe I don't have to make that mistake because somebody else has made it. Let me learn from it. Mm-hmm. And so it's just all of this that I am just a stickler for, also being uncomfortable, in these different spaces. But mm-hmm. I too will read based off if I'm going to an event, if I'm going to be around a group, if I know there's a theme, like they all come from a certain industry. Like I'll read a little bit about some stuff. I'm a huge Audible fan. So while I'm driving in between meetings and stuff, I will plug in a book. And now they have summaries of certain things where it may just be 10 to 15 minutes to give you an overview of something. And I will sometimes, I've learned you read the first paragraph and the last paragraph when it comes to an article, oftentimes. Mm-hmm. And then also even just the publications. A lot of people have opportunities where you can subscribe to things that are industry related, depending on what industry you're in. You go out there, Google, and look for that. And it allows you to stay educated. As you say, it doesn't have to just always be formal, but even informal allows you to stay relevant. Mm-hmm. And so I applaud you for those strategies, and that those strategies for positioning, but also those strategies for feeding ourselves, because that's not a one-time thing. Right. As you said, you were in classes, and while you were in classes, there was a change. Mm-hmm. And you had to am I going to miss out on this, or am I going to be in front of it? Because you're going to be either or.
Right. Yes, yes. And I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. And I heard someone say, actually, my mentor, exposure equals expansion. Exposure leads to expansion.
I love that.
So when you expose yourself to different circles, to different people, and I'm glad you brought it up. You mentioned it because that was what I was going to say about the summaries and the audiobooks. Audiobooks are very popular right now, or so even if you can just listen to a book, or or if you have no time at all to read, get around people that do read. Ask questions. Don't be afraid. When I was in the process of building, I was in meetings with people who were, much more knowledgeable about construction, architecture, all of these things. And I told them, listen, don't be afraid to talk to me like I'm in kindergarten. I will not be offended because I need to learn so that I know for the next project. So now when I'm in the second phase of building, I'm familiar with some of the terms. I know some of the things to expect. So don't be afraid to allow people to tell you something that you think you already know.
Yeah, I love that. And you said the secret word, ask.
Ask.
We don't. I'm still guilty of it. And sometimes I will spiral, I will stress. And then you get to that last moment to where you can't even make a decision because you don't have an answer. And it's like, okay, who knows this? Back to relationships and networking. You cannot not do it.
Not at all.
No. There was an article as we begin to wrap our time up, an article that was in elevatenetwork.com called 5 Challenges Faced by Women Entrepreneurs of Color. And they mentioned 5. And so I'll mention just the 5, and then you pull one out that resonates with you. So there's biases that are already in the business world. 2, networking challenges. 3, lack of mentorship. 4, lack of access to capital and funding. And oops, it cut off. So I'm going to give you those 4. Which one resonates to you?
All of them, most of them, with the exception of the first one. With the exception of the first one, because there weren't really many biases, because African American women dominate the early childhood market. So I did not have to experience that.
Okay.
But lack of access to capital was huge because it's very expensive. And like you said, a lot of times we as women entrepreneurs, we're funding our own missions. And so lack of access to capital was huge. And so when you don't do what I suggested previously was protect your credit and have money saved, then you are subject to predatory lending practices.
Okay.
If you are not financially literate, you won't even recognize that the practices are predatory. So you won't know you won't know to shy away from those types of situations. So that one definitely resonated with me, but also the lack of mentorship and the last 3, I could relate to all of them. I experienced all of that.
Yeah. How do you think mentorship would have helped you?
Mentorship would have helped me to not make some mistakes that I made.
Okay.
It would have helped me to make some wiser decisions. And I believe it would have given me access to other people that may have been able to help me, share your wisdom and your influence with me. So I think that's how mentorship would have helped me. I would have gotten further along faster with someone who was holding my hand. But fortunately, even though I did not have a mentor, my first, what they call license rep, the person who determines, what you need to get your license, she was hard as nails. And so because she required so much of me, I opened my doors with a certain level of quality because I had her.
Okay. That's awesome. Because so someone rose to the occasion in a sense, through but again, back to that building relationships. And also you mentioned, not having pride at the very beginning of this conversation, because had you been prideful, that outcome could have been very different.
Definitely. Yeah. For sure. If I had been, if I had not been willing to ask questions, if I had not been willing to yield to her authority, if I had seen her as an adversary as opposed to an advocate, if I had begun to complain about what she was requiring, all of those things take a level of humility, meekness, to recognize your ignorance. And ignorant is not necessarily a derogatory term. It just means not knowing. And so if you don't know, there's no shame in not knowing. Like I think you said this earlier, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And I was totally green. I had no foreknowledge of the early childhood industry, and I needed people. And I was humble enough to know and recognize and articulate that I need somebody. I need help. Help me.
Yeah.
So I would just say, just for women, if you are already a leader, help your sister. There's a scripture that says, when you are converted, strengthen your brother. So I had to, that was one of my biggest barriers and obstacles, was other women that look like me that weren't willing to share with me. And so I'm committed to not be that person.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. But tell us, as we close out, a little bit, what some exciting news are you that's happening over there, and what's next?
Yeah, there's so much exciting news. We're doing so much at the same time. So I don't know if I'm a visionary or if I'm just crazy. I don't know. There's a fine line between visionary and insanity.
I think you need both.
Right.
You need both for success, yes.
Right. But one thing I can say though, Nikki, that I'm an extreme optimist. I'm always crazy enough to believe that it can happen. I have crazy faith.
I love
crazy faith. And so what's next? Couple of things. The expansion into Warren County is on, we're on the heels of that. Yeah. So that facility will be open in January. Well, actually everything will be finished in December. So we'll have a ribbon cutting grand opening in January in Warren County for that community that has been extremely welcoming to me. And we just kind of met a need. There was a huge need for families low-income families, to have access to high-quality early childhood education. So we are launching Good Shepherd Early Learning Center West in Warrenton, Missouri.
Wow.
And then next, also an adult daycare facility is happening in the Show Me Family Zone. So we'll be unveiling and beginning construction on the Show Me Family Zone. So if anybody's interested in the Show Me Family Zone, you can Google the Harlem Children's Zone. And so we're patterning it after that. It's modeled after the Harlem Children's Zone.
Wow.
So that's kind of that's the big thing that we're working on now, is getting funding and building the Show Me Family Zone.
That is a massive, that's not what I was expecting. But I love it. Now you're dropping jewels and, without even realizing it, meaning dream big.
Yes.
Dream big.
Yes.
Stop limiting ourselves. So
exactly.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, I want you to make sure you keep in touch with us in regards to like how things are evolving, but we'll be watching
absolutely
how things are, but we're here to support every step of the way. Before you tag out of here, I want you to give us a word that we can hold on to. And this is a Nic of Time mentoring moment. But it's a word. Give us a word that we can rest in when we talk about building our way to success.
You know what? Timing. Because as visionaries, we want to see this thing fulfilled right now. Okay. I'm going to go back to something that you said in one of the definitions to build. Process.
Okay.
process. They're the process. Go through the process. Don't be afraid of the process. Don't run from the process, and don't abort the process.
Wow.
It makes you. The process is you're made in adversity. So process.
Wow. This has been absolutely amazing.
Yes.
Thank you so much for trusting us with your story, with your just a snapshot of your journey. And oh my gosh, I can't even imagine what will happen, even a year from now at the rate that you're moving. We will have our eyes very close to you and the work that you're doing. And man, just praying, that the way be cleared, even in your next right now, right?
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate that. And I'm honored to be a guest. Thank you for choosing me and my story and my path to be highlighted on this platform. So I appreciate the exposure and the confidence in the work that I do. So thank you very much.
You are so welcome. We will have more information posted so that you can get in touch with Lady Collins, as well as get to know more about the organizations, not just the current ones, but the ones to come. There is probably a need that can be fulfilled or met, or you can be of support in some shape, form, or fashion. We thank you for joining us. This is truly an opportunity that we are grateful for, and we don't take for granted. And you could be anywhere doing anything, but you chose to be here. I want to thank our partners and sponsors, KSTL Jubilee 690 AM, Sparkman Publications, TV Network, and ALA Public Relations. And it is just absolutely amazing to be with you one more time, to let you know you already have everything you need to be successful, as well as to lean into significance. Just tap into it, continue to show up and to share out.